So I'm doing another video. This is Chris with codeChris.com, and for this one I chose a very fun topic that everybody goes through and everybody contemplates, so I'll just go ahead and talk about it. What language should I learn first? Couple things. First of all, if at this point, if I'm the very first video that you're looking at or first article you came across to try and figure out what the first language you should learn is, then that means I must be trending pretty well. I doubt it though. There's literally tons and tons of languages that you can choose for your first programming language. I would say there's a couple things that you need to be aware of. First of all, everybody's going to tell you should learn how to program, not a particular language, which is kind of a paradox because you kind of have to understand a language to some extent in order to understand programming. But yeah, there's going to be mainly two schools of thought. The first school of thought is to understand programming. The syntax, or how it's written, how the language that you're going to learn is written, isn't the most important part of the first language you learn, because the first language you learn is really going to be built upon how you understand programming concepts and how programming works in general. You are going to go into one of two camps. Either A, the camp will say, you know what, you want to make the easiest, most simplest to understand language possible. And that's going to be Python. If you've never seen a line of code in your life, you could read Python and sort of grasp what it's doing and how it's doing it. What I've come across and I've seen is that a lot of the online tutorials that teach, and this is the free ones, or intro to computer programming or intro to computer science, will usually use Python as the language that they're using to explain programming 101. And with good reason. They might not even teach you Python. They might just explain using the Python syntax. Once again, syntax is just kind of the way it's written. That kind of stuff. There's the other route, which is go big, go home. Learn C. Some people will say go ahead and learn C. The reason being is that if you learn C, it's a very difficult language to start off with. Looking at it, it's far more archaic as far as, well, why is there a percentage sign and there's the letter D, but then there's a word, but there's a lot more symbols going on that might look a little bit more abstract for your first approach at programming. But once you know C, it's all easier. C is what is called a very low-level language, meaning it's very close to, not very close, but it's closer to what the computer is actually understanding. Because remember, the computer speaks 1010100011, right? So the computer is speaking in a binary language of just a bunch of ones and zeros. Then, without getting too complicated, we found out a way to make those binary symbols into letters that would correspond into groups of letters that would eventually correspond to organization of letters. Lower level languages are much closer to that, versus Python is way up here, which is very clear as far as making a loop and what a variable and all that stuff, right? Versus way down here, it might not be quite as clear what the heck is going on for your first time. And this is from my experience, is that when I started teaching myself how to program, I was like, oh, well, I'll just learn Python. And I started messing with Python. I discovered fairly quickly that it was referencing things that, well, unlike other languages, you don't need to declare this, and you don't need to say this, blah, blah, blah. And it kept referencing other things, other languages so quickly that I would just said, okay, this is just not going to work for me. I went down to JavaScript, which some people will argue is not that much lower, but teach his own. So I learned JavaScript as my first language because I figured, oh, look, a floating thing. I knew I was going to need a website, right? So I knew I was going to need to learn HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, right? And I was much more interested in the JavaScript portion than the HTML and CSS portion. Taught myself JavaScript, started utilizing it as a tool. It wasn't as simple as Python, but it was not nearly complex as C. There is some similarities that it has with other languages that are a little lower than it. that I was able to pick up Java much quicker. It's right in the middle. Python's right here. C is like way down here. JavaScript is going to be like, you know, somewhere over here. And then you've got like Java and C# and C++ and et cetera, et cetera. By the way, let's get one thing clear. JavaScript is not to be confused with Java. The reason why they're named similarly is this stupid marketing idea. But I guess it's kind of an effective marketing idea, considering that when you first start this, you assume that they must be related. If you have your own thoughts on what the best language to learn first is, let me know. Like, comment, subscribe. Voila.